Check in with Nick again as we are anticipating some rain.
Yes, rain, much needed rain at that. And for the most part, tonight's storms will be eventually a good thing. But in the near term, we'll have to be concerned about gusty winds, potentially localized flash flooding, and a lower risk for large hail and even a spin-up tornado. So far, we've only had one severe thunderstorm warning tonight. Earlier, as these storms were moving through Lampasas County, that warning was allowed to expire, but you can still see a strong storm there in northern Burnett County. This will soon be pushing into northwestern Williamson County here, even before we get to 10 o'clock, even though the majority of the rain gets to the rest of the metro much later tonight. Still a cluster of rain and storms moving through Lanham. None of that is severe at this point. The strongest storms of the night, I think, are going to come quite a bit later into the night, and it's coming from this secondary cluster of rain that will be moving into central Texas a couple hours later than this first cluster. Now, they may join up and it'll be hard to tell the difference between cluster number 1 and cluster number 2, but bottom line is I still think that the strongest storms have yet to really move into central Texas, and that will carry a gusty wind threat as this secondary batch of storms moves into the hill country and then moves east. This particular computer model doing a great job with overall storm positioning, fading away cluster number 1 as cluster number 2 takes over, and it's this piece right here that has the highest probability of strengthening to severe levels later on this evening. You can still see many of us not all that wet at all in the hill country, in the metro I should say, or our eastern counties at 11. We think this cluster finally reaches the western fringes of the metro between about 11 and midnight, approaching Austin after midnight, closer to maybe 1 o'clock, before then moving into our eastern counties. Very heavy rain coming with this, but it's the leading edge of the storms that carry the highest severe weather potential. And then all that heavier rain starts to exit to our east with just a few leftover showers and storms at daybreak. So storms still on track, but they come overnight. So if you're expecting them now everywhere, well, manage your expectations. You still got to wait a little ways here with gusty wind and heavy rain. Overnight lows eventually dropping into the 60s. Still damaging wind and localized flash flooding are the primary threats. I mentioned that lower concern for some large hail and the lowest risk, but not a zero threat for a quick spin-up tornado. Now what happens as we go through your Saturday, we'll get a brief break of rain in the morning, for most of the morning anyway, and then another cluster of rain and storms starts to build into the afternoon. Rain coverage won't get everybody wet here tomorrow. We think about 40% of the area see some additional rain, and then this rain wraps up as we get into Saturday night as our cold front finally pushes through and takes the instability along with it. So some morning drying, scattered afternoon and evening showers and storms tomorrow, and a high of 82. There'll be a few breaks of sun in there as well. Severe weather risk tomorrow is a 2 out of 5 for most areas. Again, should those storms develop later in the day, gusty winds and large hail, the primary threats again. A lower flash flooding threat tomorrow. I think we get the bulk of our rain here today. Still looks like 1 to 2.5 inches of rain when you add up today and tomorrow's rain. Of course, much of this comes overnight, but some isolated amounts up to 4 inches still possible, and it's in those areas that we could have some localized flash flooding. Then your Sunday, much quieter, just a few clouds at daybreak, and then a lot of sun. Will go with a high of 85. Then our attention turns to our next cold front coming in Tuesday morning that knocks the temperatures out of the 80s into the 70s, and perhaps even more astonishing than that, look at Thursday morning, down to 49. That will be our coldest morning since April the 8th. By the way, after KXAN News at 10, we will have live weather coverage on our television streaming app, KXAN Plus.